in his providence, has done so much to give Americans many graces over the years. In our history of the American church, one of the things that I have learned because of the revival is a lot about the martyrs of La Florida, for example, which people might not really know about because of Jesuit propaganda. So many people think that the first martyrs in the United States are the North American martyrs, and I don't mean to besmirch John of Brebeuf, who's an exemplary and holy man, right, or Isaac Jogues, or any of the other North American martyrs whose stories are so encouraging. But martyrs died in Florida, several of them Dominicans and native people that we evangelized on the shores of Florida. They died for the Eucharist.
Yes.
And I think that in the United States, we kind of, if we know anything about our country's martyrs, about the North American martyrs, or maybe our listeners are already better catechized than I am, and they already knew about the martyrs of La Florida. But we tend to think of martyrdom as a historic category.
Yes.
In the U.S. church, and and that's because we've been so blessed, I would say, in this country, that there was real waves of Catholic persecution in the 19th century. A lot of that was the anti-immigrant sentiment that the Italians suffered, like people can see in the Angel Studios film about Mother Cabrini, or that the Irish suffered.
Right.
But we don't really see many modern American martyrs, but there are some.
Yeah.
Which is why we wanted to take the time on this episode to talk about Blessed Stanley Rother. So why don't you, Father Joseph Anthony, introduce Blessed Stanley to people who maybe have heard nothing about this great man?
No, I don't think I really heard much about him until he was beatified. Like, I'll be very honest. I didn't know anything about this man until there was this big beatification ceremony in Oklahoma City. And it was this kind of making the waves in news outlets, and it was like, oh, there's a new American beatus, like a new American saint from Oklahoma, and he was a martyr. And then you see the picture, and there's this guy with a nice kind of red, tight shaved beard, and he's wearing a little kind of knit, multicolored stole. And I'm like, we're beatifying this guy, like. He's wearing like a polo shirt in the picture. It's like, what is going on here? And so I just kind of cast that to the side and was like, whatever, like local devotions and things like that. And then,
I mean, what could possibly be going on in Oklahoma, right?
I know, what good can come from Oklahoma, And then one of my focus missionaries who served at the University of Virginia with me a number of years ago had a devotion to Blessed Stanley and had studied or had gone to Guatemala and studied the Spanish language to brush up on his Spanish skills. And it was during his time in Guatemala that he had visited the small town where Blessed Stanley was martyred, and had this very deep devotion to him because of the priestly sanctity that was there. And he was in seminary at the time, and it was that visit that actually confirmed his vocation. And his vocation was actually not to be a priest. And his deep devotion to Blessed Stanley was my first introduction to it.
Father Jacob Bertrand, would you say that you're optimistic about this subscription appeal?
No.
Would you say that you're optimistic about anything?
No.
Well, I am. Folks, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd greatly appreciate it. Cheers.